Okay, if you haven't filled out an appearance slip yet, could you fill one out and hand it up here to Jay? If you want to talk on something that's on the agenda or whatever. And if you don't want to talk, just fill one out and then we can read it into the record. Okay, I call this Sawyer County Zoning Committee meeting to order. Roll call, Kathy, please.
Ron Buckholz.
Present.
Bruce Paulson.
Here.
Dawn Pettit.
Here.
Jesse Bencher.
Here.
Tweed Schuman. Stacy.
Here.
Here he is.
We can hear you coming.
Yeah.
Just say here.
Here.
Here. Thank you.
Okay, pledge of allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Statement of committee and hearing procedures and statement of hearing notice. This full statement of the committee and hearing procedure document, including directions for individuals wishing to speak at a public hearing to be conducted at this zoning committee meeting, are available in the front of this room next to the agenda for today's meeting. The statement of the committee hearing procedure document is hereby incorporated into the record for the committee meeting. Any public hearing conducted at today's committee meeting has been published as a Class 2 notice in accordance with Chapter 985 of the Wisconsin statutes in Sawyer County Record and the Sawyer County Gazette as posted. Okay. I need approval of the October 15th minutes.
I'll move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Paulson and a second by Ms. Pettit to approve the October 15 minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Public comment. Please note, comment time is intended for the general public comments, not comments relating to a specific application before this committee. Each agenda item requiring a public hearing will have its public hearing conducted just prior to the application being considered by the committee. If you wish to speak on a specific agenda item, we encourage you to hold your comments until that specific item period or public hearing. Okay. Is there any public comment? Okay.
Seeing none, we will move on to our first rezone application. This is a public hearing in the town of Windsor, rezone number 21-010. Owner Janet Thompson, revocable trust, part of the southeast one quarter, and part of the CSM 7/27, section 27, township 39 north, range 5 west, parcel 032-539-274402. It is 4.31 total acres, zoned to agricultural 1. Purpose of this request is to rezone to RR1 and then to divide the property into additional lots. As part of the staff report, again, this rezone would be for 4.31 acres of agricultural 1 to be rezoned to residential recreational 1. It is proposed that this lot would then be divided into 4 smaller lots, which would be compliant with the proposed zone district and subdivision requirements by a certified survey map process. With the additional maps included in this packet, the reason RR1 zone district was chosen is that there is existing RR1 property in the immediate vicinity. The other most common zone districts in the area are agricultural 1. It does appear on the town of Winter's comprehensive plan maps that this area for the subject rezone request on their future map is as rural residential, which is also indicated by the town comp plan. This is a recommendation. There is an existing farmstead north of the road from this property, which was why this parcel was initially zoned to agricultural 1. As part of the web soil survey, though, this area does show as prime farmland and farmland of importance, although most of that lot is completely wooded and is less than 5 acres. As part of the town, motion was approved. Ronald Barnaby, chairman, Ron Fandry, supervisor, John Surlowski, supervisor. No additional comments. Signed, Lori Van Winkle, town clerk. There were 7 opinion letters sent out. 6 were returned, 3 with objections, 3 with no objections. It says, I have objections to this, but no additional comments. Richard Goff, I have objections. As a landowners to the south of the property listed above, we do have concerns of its division into 4 lots and into RR1 recreational zoning, as now there is a substandard water runoff from that property to ours in 3 different areas. Also, the rezoning of RR1 is concerning, having read the definitions of RR1 and many business type uses it allows. We worry it could result in future depletion of the values of our property. Michael Windsor. I have objections to this. Entirely changes the intended use of this property. Bought home next to property, trusting it would not be developed. Adds congestion and noise to rural roads near our home. Provides noise and site buffer from the bar east of Lake Winter Road. Development will add runoff into Lake Winter, already plagued by blue-green algae. Signed, Thomas Shower. I have no objections to this. Donald Krajkovic or Judy Spala. I have no objections to this. Jeffrey and Diane Hoyer. I have no objections to this. Anna Susan for the McLean Trust. That is all.
Okay. All right, I need a motion to go into public hearing on rezone number 21-010.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Schuman and a second by Mr. Betcher to go into public hearing on rezone number 21-010. Mrs. Thompson or Dale, which one of you want to speak in this? Okay, state your name and your address for the record, please.
Dale Thompson. My address is, I live in Cumberland, but mom lives south of Ojibwa. Excellent address.
Okay, just put your mom's address.
Yep, 2339 State Road 27. Excellent. 54835.
Okay, what do you want to tell the committee?
We're not gonna make a big development out of it. We just wanna, instead of 4 lots, we're gonna probably do 3 and sell the lot to the north. Then the family wants to keep the middle lot and sell the lot with the house on it on the south. So that's the only thing. We want to keep the middle lot, and we had somebody interested in buying a piece on the north because his father lives right across the road. Somebody that's been renting that house for 30 years. Roger Schmidt, his stepson, wants to purchase some remodeling and stuff. So
I wasn't sure where that was at first, but then.
Right across the road.
Then I know where it was, yeah.
and Windsor's, they share a driveway with
Yeah.
us, and they're probably concerned about some development there. There's been rumors of campground maybe going in or something, but we have no intention of that. It's too small. Anyway. The only thing we'd have there is maybe 1 camper. It's a lot for a family or something. So, questions or
Committee, you got any questions for?
But if you sell that northern lot, then you have no idea or control over what would happen to that.
But it's only going to be 1.5 acres. Right. There's the person interested in it might build a small cabin on it. His father has property right across the road. So.
Okay, so at most, there could be eventually 3 separate residences in this location.
There's already one.
There's already one.
There possibly could be 2 additional, but we're not foreseeable future building a cabin. might have a place to pull a camper in, and maybe put an electric hookup for family to stay and such. There's a boat landing pretty nearby, so.
Mr. Schuman.
Mr. Thompson, they claim that it's prime ag land underneath. Was this was once a farm field and the trees just kind of came up through it, or?
It was a farm all the way down there through that road, and when they put that, it's like Lake Winter Road, I think that's called.
Yeah.
And that road went through the farm after they dammed up Lake Winter, and then that was never rezoned, so it's just 4.5 acres that used to be part of the farm, and it's never been rezoned, so.
Oh, I see. So Lakewood Road is on the north end of the property then?
It's actually both of those roads there are called Lake Winter Road. It's
Yeah.
kind of confusing.
They
Oh,
go
I see.
both directions.
That's all.
Thank you. Any more questions? Ms. Bennett, you have a question?
No, not at all. I think it would be beneficial for the area there.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there's no more questions, need a motion to come out of public hearing on rezone number. Oh, sorry. Anybody out there would like to speak for this rezone? Anybody out there want to speak against the rezone? Thanks. Yep. All right, we need a motion to come out of the public hearing on rezone number 21-010.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Schuman and a second by Mr. Paulson to come out of public hearing on rezone number 21-010. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action in the town of Windsor rezone number 21-010, owner Janet Thompson revocable trust. Legal description is previously read into record. This request is to rezone 4.31 total acres of agricultural 1 to residential recreational 1.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question for Mr. Kozlowski. Jay, on one of the letters of objections, they mentioned some businesses and so forth being built on this property. What if it's an R1? That's not permitted, is it?
It is with conditional use.
Right.
There are some kind of mixed, as you call them, residential recreational oriented business uses that would be allowed with the granting of a conditional use permit.
Okay.
And again, that's, I guess, kind of the rub. It's not, they're not permitted uses still. They would still require an extra level of a conditional
Right,
use permit
right.
approval.
So like, that would be like a small engine repair shop or a hair salon or something to that.
Yeah,
nature?
I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but I know like a sports shop, a bar restaurant, some of those residential,
Right.
I should say recreational types of uses would be permitted with a conditional use permit in an RR1 zone district.
Mhm.
I think Bruce has them right there that he's looking
Yeah.
at. So.
Yeah, multifamily, rooming or boarding houses, mobile home parks, public schools or things like that.
Right, and one of the things to look at is, with granting of any type of those conditional use permits, is that an area that wouldn't affect property values?
Right.
If there's going to be a division of land here, that is going to be a small acreage to really do any of those other
Right.
conditional use permit approval processes.
Mr. Schuman.
Jay, is zoning putting a condition on this that it only be divided into 3 lots?
They
Or
would
is it-
not, no, and
No.
with a rezone, we wouldn't be able to put any types of conditions on a rezone from a certified survey map process, which again, not taking it to a further level as a subdivision, which requires a county plat or a state plat. The most this property could be divided into would be 4 lots. One main lot now could be divided in 4. There's a couple different routes they could be done. We've heard from the owner that their intention is to do the 3.
And it's consistent with other zoning around it. There's an RR1, right, to the
Yep,
east, I guess.
yep. I have that map up here before I get back to it. But most of the properties along Lake Winter Road are zoned residential recreational 1. Here's Lake Winter Road right here. All that orangish brown areas are R1. The yellow areas are the agricultural 1. And again, the only thing that I can tell is that, once upon a time, probably back in the 50s, maybe even before then, there was farmstead in this area. A lot of Lake Winter had gotten developed once the dam was made, and this one just always stayed agricultural.
For my time.
May I speak?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Pettit.
Yes, it was farm homestead, long, long time ago. Actually, the Pettits had also homestead out that way. As you can see, everything that isn't RR, that was farmstead around that area. So you have a restaurant bar right in that area. The road goes through. You can see the other lots are proportional. Even if he divided that into it's a 4.5 acre lot, that would stay within the use of that area. I don't see the Thompsons opening up a campground or anything like that. I see them, saying they want to put a cabin or the camper there, but they're very limited to what they can do once they divide it up. It's not like we can put a whole campground into there on an acre.
I should mention that there was a prospective buyer that had brought that forward to me, that they were interested in potentially operating this as a campground. That was after publications had gone out, at which point I told them, well, A, campgrounds would not be allowed in the RR1 zone district. It would have to be as an RR2. And B, with the new adoption of our campground ordinance language, you do need a minimum of 10 acres in order to operate a campground. So both of those facets right there somewhat dead-ended that conversation.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve this rezone number 21-010.
I'll second.
Okay, let Dawn second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Schuman and a second by Ms. Pettit to approve the rezone number 21-010. Any more discussion? If not, roll call, Kathy.
Chris Paulson,
Yes.
John Pettit,
Yes,
Jesse Betcher,
Yes.
Tweed Schuman,
Yes.
Ron Buckles.
Yes.
All in favor.
Okay,
Motion
finding the facts, it would not be damaging to the rights of others or property values, and it would not create an air quality, water supply, or pollution problem.
All right. Thanks, Dale. Janet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Yep. Moving on, this is a public hearing in the town of Sand Lake, conditional use permit number 21-031, owners Matthew and Lindsay Carey, part of the west one half of the northwest one quarter, lot 1, CSM number 7095, section 30, township 39 north, range 9 west, parcel 0269393021002, 5 total acres, zoned agricultural 2. Permit is desired for a small event barn for a nonprofit fundraising car shows. Per the Sawyer County zoning ordinance, section 17.5, parent B, parent 15, under event barns. Again, per that section of the ordinance, does allow for event barns with a conditional use permit. This request is for a small event barn for a nonprofit fundraising car show. The applicants are requesting this per their statement that the events will be car shows related and mainly used for nonprofit fundraising opportunities. The owners do a lot of business with their classic cars and rat rods, such as heading an Eradicate Cancer Cruise fundraiser in the fall, as well as Wrenching for the Future, which is a scholarship program for students getting into the trades. As part of their operation plan, events would be held May through October, weather permitting. Hours would be from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Capacity of up to 100 people. Parking will be available in the driveway and in and or around the barn. That sanitation is required and will be in the form of portable restroom units. If there is to be food, it will be catered in or as with food trucks. There'll be approximately 6 events per season, changed in possible condition. I changed them to not exceed 8. They had initially said approximately 6. That was pretty vague, so I put a maximum amount not to exceed 8, and we'll get down to my possible conditions on that. And then proper garbage dumpsters will be available on site. You can also look at the maps here attached in the packet. So again, going to my potential conditions, if we were to approve this, and you can always add or delete from this list, as part of the possible conditions, maintain the specific plan of operations, not to exceed 8 events per year. All other federal, state, county, and town regulations must be complied with, including any type of state commercial licensing or health department licensing that would be needed. That no vehicle parking would be allowed on the town roads. No overnight camping is allowed for the event outside of what is allowed as section 6.7, which would allow for private camping on a property, not to exceed 2 campers. That the owner is to secure proof of insurance and provide that to the zoning department, and that any signage would need to meet the Sawyer County zoning sign provisions. As part of the town's town board approved the action. Robert Langham, town chair, Edgar Gregory, supervisor, George Shedby, supervisor, citing that it would not create traffic or highway access problems. It would not destroy prime agricultural land, signed Elaine Nyberg. There were 7 opinion letters sent out, 2 were returned, both with no objections. I have no objections. There should be plenty of parking space on their own property, so I don't see an issue with the vehicles blocking the street. I wish them well on their new venture, Edgar Gregory. I have no objections to this, Patricia Clark. That is all.
Okay. All right. I need a motion to go into public hearing on CUP number 21-031.
So moved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Betcher and a second by Mr. Schuman to go into public hearing on CUP number 21-031. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We are now in public hearing. Are the Carries here?
Yes.
Which one would you like to speak? Or both of these is fine too. State your name and your address, please.
Lindsay Carey, 16807 West 4th Street, South in Stone Lake.
Okay, anything you want to tell the committee that you want them to know or hear? Or?
That pretty much sums it up. We have the coffee shop down in Stone Lake, and we've been doing our fundraising car shows there, and we're running out of room for people. So we thought if we could move it to our home, which is just like a block down the way, we can have more vehicles, more spectator, and just be able to hopefully raise more money for these charities. That's our main focus.
Any questions, Mr. Betcher?
Yeah, so just some clarifying questions here. So it says capacity of 100 people. Does that mean 100 cars are going to be there, or does that mean 100 spectators?
I would think 100 total. I mean, we don't have that much space to do. And if we
Okay.
get to that point, then we're going to have to find a different location.
100 total. Okay,
Yep.
so the camping issue was addressed. Are these normally one-day events, or are they over the
1 day.
weekend? Okay,
Yep.
1 day, so camping shouldn't be an issue. Okay, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Mr. Paulson, Mr. Schuman? Ms. Pettit, you got any questions?
The time frame, are they asking for 8 a.m. to 11 p.m.?
We just put that as a as a time frame. Usually they start around 9-10 a.m. We're usually done before dark, but just wanted to follow with the time frame for noise issues, and
Okay.
if we have any kind of music or anything, just to have that done before, so that we don't disturb anybody around. So
Okay. Did you get that, Ms. Pettit?
Yes. My only concern would be about if there's people showing up early, are you letting them camp overnight on the property the night before?
No.
Are they going to be bringing trailers in?
Most people drive their vehicles there. We don't have accommodations for that, so they'd have to find a hotel or, find somewhere to go with that.
Okay.
Yep, but no, we're not, that wasn't the plan, to allow people to load up our yard with trailers and stay overnight, so.
Okay. Any more, Ms. Pettit? All right.
No.
Any more question? Okay. Thank you. Does anybody out there would like to speak in favor of this CUP? Go ahead, Ms. Zilmer. You got 3 minutes.
Linda Zolmer, 902 Howling Hill Lane, Birchwood, Wisconsin, Edgewater property owner, and I'm speaking for informational purposes only. Appreciate the conditions that it appears the applicants would follow and accept, and that would hope that you would incorporate into your motion issuing the conditional use permit. And I would ask for 2 more. Compliance with section 6.36 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance, which is antique and hobby vehicles. And compliance with section 6.96 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance, which covers special events. I think the question came up was, what does the 100 mean? And I interpreted that to mean 100 attendees or participants. And I can, just from, enjoying some of these kinds of things, I think attendance could be well over 100, and I would wish them success, but compliance with 6.96 for special events handles any gatherings that would exceed 100 attendees. So hopefully maybe Jay can answer questions on that if you have that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else want to speak in favor?
As a county board,
Yes.
since I'm just an alternate and I don't get like a normal vote, I just wanted to speak in favor of them because I've attended events that they have. They're very responsible, very community minded, and I think it would be a disservice to Stone Lake if we denied it.
Thank you. Anyone else out there like to speak in favor? If not, is there anybody out there that would like to speak in opposition to the CUP? Any hands up, anybody? Okay. All right, if not, need a motion to come out of public hearing on CUP number 21-031.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Betcher and a second by Mr. Schuman to come out of public hearing on CUP number 21-031. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question for Mr. Kozlowski.
Do you want to go into discussion action?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is discussion action for the Town of Sand Lake Conditional Use Permit number 21-031. Owners Matthew and Lindsay Carey. Legal description is previously read into record. This permit is desired for a small event, non-fundraising or non-profit fundraising car show per Sawyer County Ordinance Section 17.5, Parent B, Parent 15 for event barns.
Okay.
All right, I forgot my question.
Sorry.
No, I didn't. If we do the conditional use permit, I mean, they could also do for-profit events, right? I mean, there's no restriction in.
Unless
here.
you put a condition on that,
Right.
that it's not to
Okay.
be for profit.
Yeah, but that gets problematic. Because they project a loss, they can tell you it's not, it's a commercial
Right.
entity, if they can project a loss.
Right, there was one question that was brought up as far as, event barns versus special event permits. And I looked into that with special event permits, generally those are granted for one event. Now, we had an individual, I believe it was last year, early part of last year, that wanted to do these customer appreciation days.
Yeah.
And we issued a tri-annual special event. Now with the Carey's situation, they had informed me that there'd be approximately 6 events. Do we allow for a hextuple? What's the word? Yeah, hextuple. Just, for a 6 event special event permit. That's, I think, getting a little too much. So that is where we kind of went the route of doing an event barn and then putting specific conditions on that approval of this being as an event farm. If you want to get into profit versus nonprofit, have at it. I left that open-ended. And then again, as part of some of the conditions that I had, specified in there in conjunction with their plan of operations that they had submitted, would be not to exceed the 8 events per year, you know, to follow all of the federal, county, states, town regulations. You know, we look at the importance of, you know, highway and, you know, traffic issues, so no parking of vehicles within that town road. You know, as part of their plan of operations, they did specify that the capacity would be up to 100 people. So whether there's, you know, issues with having over 100 people, I think that would be something, you know, if the carriers are going to have over 100 people there, they're going to want to come back and, you know, change that plan of operation with a updated conditional use permit to go up to 100, 150. Again, we're looking at this specifically as an event barn and then putting conditions on that. I don't want to muddy the waters with this, and as far as a special event permit, I would see those as two separate topics.
Jay,
Yes.
if we were to approve this, we would also want to put in the top all of the possible conditions.
Yeah, and if there's something else that, you know, that I've missed, I always leave that open-ended. These aren't, you know, all
We can
encompassing this. I mean,
Add to it.
yeah, I'm one individual thinking of possible conditions. If you don't like a condition in any of this stuff, strike it out. If you think that, oh, hey, it'd be nice to get this into condition, add it in there. I'm just coming up with hypotheticals when I put those in my staff reports.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
make the motion to approve this conditional use permit application and including their plan of operation and the possible conditions as recommended by the zoning administrator.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Paulson and a second by Mr. Betcher to approve CUP number 21-031. Discussion, Mr. Schuman.
Yeah, in discussion, I would ask the carries, is 100 people, will you ever go out over 100 people? Come close or?
I mean, with our stuff down at the coffee shop, we just don't have the space for that. So if we moved in to our property, if we find that it's going to be a larger amount of people, like I said, we're gonna have to find a different event space because we just don't have, that's a lot, you know? So, I mean, we just kind of approximate 100 and, you know, just, and even when people are coming, like if you have spectators coming, you're not gonna have, you know, this herd of people all day. They just kind of, you know, right.
Most of the time, vehicles that show up that actually participate in the show, even most of the car shows that go throughout the country, there's 40, 50 cars tops. Typically we see, unless you go to like back to the 50s, and that's a big fairgrounds in Minnesota, but it's nowhere near that, so.
Okay. Any more discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve CUP number 21-031. If there's no more discussion, roll call, Kathy.
Dawn Pettit,
Yes.
Jesse Betcher,
Yes.
Tweed Schuman,
Yes.
Ron Buckles.
Yes.
Bruce Paulson,
Yes,
all in favor.
okay, you want finding of facts? It would not be damaging to the rights of others nor property values, and editorially it would be very good for the community.
Thank you. All right. New business, shipping container / accessory structures on vacant land.
Yeah, so we kind of spitball this around a few times at different meetings, and I was kind of tasked with coming up with some draft language on this. So there's kind of two separate issues at hand. One of them is shipping containers. In that, what is a shipping container? Is it an accessory structure? Is it something that we don't want to regulate? Is it something that we do want to regulate? Do we want to have them? Do we not want to have them? Currently, as of right now in the zoning office, as per a matter of policy, we have been allowing shipping containers and treating them as accessory structures. Where currently accessory structures are not allowed on vacant property, but if you had a primary dwelling, aka a house or a cabin on a lot and you wanted to have a shipping container on that property, you could do so, and you would need to have a permit in place as an accessory structure for the shipping container. So that was kind of one thing as far as, to get that into ordinance and whether or not, we want to continue to allow them, if we want to outlaw them, if we want to potentially come up with some landscaping ordinance features for them. So this is my first attempt at getting some language down here for the shipping containers. So the second portion of it then was the potential allowance of accessory structures on vacant land. I get numerous requests every year, whether it's in the form of an email or a phone call or someone at the window, to even put a number on it, probably 30, maybe 40 per year of someone asking, can I put a small shed up on my property? That's on top of the other probably 20 or 30 complaints that we have to address annually for people that have put sheds on their vacant lots and that have not gotten permits. So again, currently our ordinance does not allow for accessory structures on vacant property. So kind of two different topics, but they have intermingling parts here. So the first change here, now all these changes are from specific sections in the ordinance, and there is no deletions to any words. It's just the yellow highlighting is additions to specific either definitions or languages included. So as section 2.0, parent 1 under definitions, accessory structures, I've included that last sentence is that, accessory structures includes basically, everything that's a structure. It includes decks, it includes patios, garages, sheds, yard barns, carports, Quonset huts, shipping containers, semi-trailers, etc. We get a lot of people that say, oh, it's on skids, it doesn't need a permit. So I've even added that language. Whether something is portable, temporary, or on skids, it is still considered a structure and still requires permits for those. We then further go into defining what a shipping container is, and I've added that here. I'm not going to read it verbatim, but the important part with that is trying to define what a shipping container is, or an intermodal container is also the addition here that more than one shipping container on any lot would require a conditional use permit, except for lots zoned industrial or commercial, in which more than 3 containers would require a conditional use permit. I'll go on record, and I actually stole this language from Bayfield County. They just went through that same process. They had the requirements that you'd be allowed 1 shipping container on a lot that contains a primary dwelling. More than 1 shipping container, they need to come in and get a conditional use permit and really explain why do you need more than 1 shipping container. And then again, for lots within industrial zone districts or commercial zone districts, they done some research and they put it at 3. If you're going to have more than 3 of them, then it requires a conditional use permit. Then we move on. That's kind of defining the accessory structure portion and at least the definition of shipping containers. Then we get into actually, kind of the meat of the ordinance is section 4.26, where this is where I've kind of laid out this exemption clause, which that an exemption is granted for 1 accessory structure to be allowed on a vacant lot containing a minimum of 20,000 square feet of land. And the reason why 20,000 square feet of land was chosen is that is what a minimum lot size requirement needs to be now. It's also to, in essence, prevent those smaller sheds and accessory structures from going into those very small lots, be it in the Northwoods Beach subdivision area or other maybe small lake lots that are out there that don't have the 20,000 square feet. So I thought it was important to at least get that in there. And then the next portion here, that this exemption requires a land use permit not to exceed 144 square feet. The 144 square feet was chosen is that's a 12 by 12, decent size shed to have on a vacant land. But also in that 144 square feet is usually less than we would see the typical shipping container size. Generally, most shipping containers are either 8x20 or an 8x40. Now, yes, you could get a custom built metal container that's 10x10 or 10x12, but the general form that those shipping containers come in is an 8x20 or an 8x40. So that is done in a manner is that, yes, we potentially allow accessory structures on vacant land, but with that size in place, it would prevent shipping containers as that one accessory structure on vacant land.
And what, Jay, what is that size in 144 square feet? Because I see a lot of these little buildings, that they're building and
Yep.
selling and moving out to properties. So it'd have to be a minimum, what'd you say, 10 by?
12 by 12.
So
12 by
140, yeah, 144 is either 10x14, which is 140 square feet, or 12x12, which is 144 square feet. Yeah.
And habitable or not?
No, and then the
Can you
last
sleep in
sentence, there's
these?
no habitation is allowed in these structures and all.
How are you
all
gonna control that?
Right, and that is kind of the struggle with this. And we've talked, amongst the office as well, and there's mixing opinions within the office that, we should allow them to have up to a 500 square feet accessory structure. Some saying that, no, we should stick to our guns, not allow any accessory structures, even though they're occurring now. So it is difficult as the zoning administrator to look into any of these potential changes. If someone wants to convert their shed and sleep in it and they get carbon monoxide asphyxiation, I mean, that's on them. I can't go and police all those types of manners like that. The 144, I think, would make it a little bit difficult to, throw a bed in there. If there's any other kind of storage in there, I'm sure you could get creative and still do it. But really, these sheds on vacant land, I think in a long run will actually potentially beautify the area. And that right now, we are seeing a lot of camping coming into town. Private land camping, vacant land camping. And right now, without the allowance of a small shed or accessory structure on the property, they're shoveling all their tools and lawnmowers and totes and crap under the camper, or it's out in the yard, and it's starting to look a little tacky. Now, if you had a small shed out there, the intent is, well, you can store your stuff in a clean, dry environment. I'm probably someone in a minority of that, and I'll just continue on, and then we can kind of go through some Q&As, and I know some other people have discussion issues that they want to have here. So the last one is kind of looking at what we charge for permit fees and for permits. Right now is if an accessory structure is less than 100 square feet, we do not require a permit or a permit fee on it unless it's on shoreline property. So right now, I have a house in the middle of the woods. If I wanted to bring in an 8x10 shed on my property, I wouldn't need a permit with zoning to do so. It's once you get to 100 square feet and above, and when I have to go get a permit and pay a fee for the zoning office. With this, that would still remain the same, but we would have that for this exempt structure portion. Let's say I did want to have just an 80 square foot shed on my vacant land. Now I would need a permit because that's an exemption to the ordinance. And further down here, an application must be filed with the zoning department for shoreline properties and for structures and for any structures and for accessory structures that would meet the exemptions in 4.26. The reason why we'd want to have permits on those, so we can track them. Just so that we know which, that you have only one of them out there. It's a checks and balances that maybe, okay, if we're getting reports that someone's sleeping on them and we got a permit on it, the permit language on there allows governmental agencies to go out to the property and do inspections. So there is some mindset behind why that was added there as well, is that we want to get permits on those vacant land accessory structures.
Jay?
But that's what I got so far. So
I know, and I said this before, that there is a lot of these shipping containers already out there. And like I said before, it's not only the shipping containers, now it's these semi-van trailers that are dropping the axles and putting them on the land. So I guess what happens to all the ones that are already out there, we don't even know if they're permitted. I mean, do they have permits or whatever?
correct, yeah, and right now, whether or not it's one of those semi trailers where they've dropped the axle off of them, and or a shipping container, current ordinance would treat those as accessory structures, and if they're on vacant land, they're illegal. And if they're on land with a primary dwelling and they don't have permits, they're illegal. Again, the enforcement aspect behind that, and we're getting to them when we can. But right now, those aren't allowed. And the idea, again, with this, if we do allow for that one single accessory structure on vacant land, it still can't exceed the 144 square foot threshold, which again, most of those shipping containers are over that, and most of those semi containers are over that, which would still make them illegal, even with an ordinance change.
So Jay, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Schuman.
Jay, is it, if we allow a permit for an accessory structure on vacant land, do they have a time period that they would have to build on that land, or am I thinking about something else?
No, so this one would be that you are, as an exemption, that you are allowed one, but
Okay,
it's got to be less than 144 square feet. If you came in and you said, well, I really want to build that garage first, we're only going to build a 24 by 24, 576 square foot garage. You don't meet the exemption protocols now, but further language in 4.26 does allow for a conditional use permit for that time frame consideration. And that's what you're getting at,
oh, I see.
is that, if you still wanted to build your garage first, you could be granted up to a 3-year time frame to build the garage and still secure a land use permit to build the house. So that wouldn't change at all.
Go ahead, Mr. Paulson.
Jay, I thought you said that by office policy, you allow shipping containers, or?
We, as of right now, we do, yes. And we
Okay.
treat them as accessory structures, but again, being as an accessory structure right now, they're only allowed on properties that contain a primary dwelling.
Right, no, I understand. Okay.
And we've issued them, we probably have, I'd have to really kind of look back, because we don't break them out separately, as, this one was for a shed, this one was for a shipping container.
Right.
But there's probably at least 30, maybe 50 that we've issued in the last 10 years for
So-
shipping containers as an accessory structure on a parcel that contains a house.
Right, so the violation would be on shipping containers on vacant land.
Correct.
Okay.
I know all the ones that I've been talking about, Jay, though, are on, there's primary residence on them. I haven't not seen any on vacant land, otherwise, was it?
Right, it's always something that it just kind of drives the zoning department and the zoning administrator mad, in that there's some mentality out there where people don't think they need permits for sheds or for shipping containers. When something's portable or on skids or movable, for whatever reason, there's a mindset out there that they don't think they need permits for them. And it's frustrating, because that's never been the case. You look across other counties in the area, that's never been the case. It's always just been a misconception between the general public, is that they don't need permits for stuff that's portable. And again, we do follow up with those enforcement issues and get them, after the fact, double permit fees on those. So they are still being addressed.
Go ahead, Ms. Pettit.
You're muted.
I don't have anything that it must have been from before.
Okay, thank you.
I have
Go ahead, Mr.
a
Becker.
comment. So I understand the reason why people want an accessory structure on vacant land. Because they come up there at some point during the year, whether it's hunting season or in the summer to camp or whatever. So they have stuff, lawnmowers, maybe an ATV, chainsaws, gas cans. And so currently now, if they want to follow the law, they have to pack all that stuff up in their truck, van, SUV, and drive it back to southern Wisconsin or Minnesota, wherever they.
Or leave it out unprotected.
Or leave it unprotected in the elements, which is unsightly and also, not secure. It's unsafe. So I totally understand the reason behind wanting the accessory structure, and I agree with that. I'm in support of it. I think it's good that we consider charging a permit fee to build that structure, but I'm against the size limit, because personally, if I have an ATV, chainsaw, lawnmower that I'm going to leave out there, I think the most secure structure is one of these 20-foot shipping containers, which is 160 square feet. So I'm not allowed to put that there, even though that's gonna be the most secure where I mean, steel sides, like, it's got the secure locks, I can put big padlocks on it. And you're not gonna somebody's not gonna go in there with a crowbar and a ball peen hammer and break into it.
No,
Like
you
they
need a
would one of
torch.
these little, little wooden sheds or whatever. So I'm in support of allowing a small structure on vacant land. But I'm also in favor of that structure being a 20-foot, not a 40-foot, but a 20-foot, which would be 160 square feet. So that's my opinion on vacant land structures.
Yeah, and again, I mean, this is a draft at this point, so I mean, we're, just in discussion phases here. I put in there, just this time it's just discussion only, so I mean, we're not even ready to send anything out to the towns here. And I mean, and Mr. Betcher brings up a good point. I mean, do we want to regulate shipping containers as a accessory structure on vacant property? I mean, there's that stigma that we talk about with shipping containers, whether it's, from an aesthetic viewpoint and that, they may look nice the first couple of years that they're in there, but they end up, rusting out, a shed of that nature, 50 years from now, that thing's probably dilapidated and you wouldn't even be able to see it from the road. A shipping container, let's say the property goes belly up or something like that, that shipping container is going to be around for 300, 200 years before it eventually rusts all the way out. So there's that aesthetics and longevity of a structure too. I mean, those are all things you have to keep into consideration here with any potential ordinance changes.
Where'd you get the rationale for the 144? Is that what Bayfield has?
No, I kind of just spitball that 12 by 12, a common.
Just to
shed
come in
size.
under the.
Yeah.
the
And to
average
keep it-
shipping container.
Right, my initial intent here was to keep it under the 8 by 20, which is 160, and that to not allow the shipping container as that form of that accessory structure on vacant property, but to allow someone a decent sized shed to keep some of their stuff in. So that's where that 12 by 12 came in. I mean, could you bump that up to 150 square feet or 159 square feet? Yeah, but I just stuck with 144.
Hey, Mr. Nisi, on step to the podium.
Yeah, Mr. Doc, please.
Phil Neese, town of Bass Lake, resident. One of our problems that we're facing, and especially the epicenter of it, is Bass Lake. We have residential camping that is covered and has covered the town. And it got away from the town, so then we had to legalize it, in which we have done. But we also have an ordinance that we had to write to be able to control what it is, because we have people with $200,000 houses, $500,000 houses that have lots right next to them that are very inexpensive, and we got camping. And so I'm not against camping, and camping's great, but one of the problems with Sawyer County is we basically are rural and have become urbanized. And people come here and are paying no taxes. They are contributing less than nothing, I'm sorry, to the economy here because they bring their own ice and beer usually. But going back, I do not, I'll reverse the process, because I think shipping containers are a structure. And because everything in Wisconsin is now a structure. That's the way the law got rewritten, that this is a structure. So, and I think allowing people to have them is fine. But I think there needs to be a limit on it, because it becomes a little more complicated. When you talk about a shed in general, they are a shed. They are 10 feet tall or whatever. Shipping containers, and they are making them now 6 foot, 8 foot, and 10 foot, small ones. The big ones are, I did a little research on this, and since I was born in a junkyard, raised next to a dump, I understand shipping containers. So, but they're 20 foot, 40 foot, they're 40 foot high cubes. There are 53 foot rail ones. And, do we want to become an area that is just for people to come up and store some stuff, and who's going to sustain the economy here? It's not going to be them, it's going to be the taxpayers. And so I think we have to be very careful that we don't destroy our tax base with some of this stuff. But allowing an exemption on vacant property is an invitation to hillbilly heaven. I guarantee it. I can take you, come over to Bass Lake some afternoon in the summer and drive, and we've had it because we got really cheap land. You can get 20,000 square feet for $7,000 or less. And so we had originally, a few years ago, we had residential camping on maybe 3 sites. We're up to 50. And they're buying it. You go look on the realtor thing. They're buying them left and right. From a town's perspective, just a pure town's perspective, I believe that providing an exemption for one wouldn't get past towns. So it would not get past Bass Lake, I guarantee you. And so, but that's only one town, and I've talked to some other towns recently, and they're certainly not in favor of allowing an exemption that you can have one accessory structure. Because that is really saying, okay, you can buy a piece of land, and now I can put a shed on it. And within our ordinance, you have to have everything removed off of these properties for the camping portion of it. And if you got a little shed, it's got to go too. Because otherwise, we're just ending up with stuff laying out all over it. Quite frankly, to Jesse's point, I would almost rather see something under a tarp than if it's that important. But anyway, that's that. Going back up to the top part, I do believe that any shipping, Jay is exempted one in his thing here. It's always easy. It's a lot easier to create. It's a lot easier to criticize. So that's what I'm doing, Jay. But I really think that should be any shipping container. They are pretty permanent pieces of equipment. And my son, who bought a piece of property recently, this is a sidebar, and it had a 40-foot shipping container on it, which he loved. And he knew it was there when he bought it. And that didn't work out very good because Tammy said, that ain't sand. And it cost him over $2,000 to get rid of it because junk prices are zero and you had to get a crane to lift the sucker. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, I would also suggest, Jay, up where you listed all these names to put in EG or ETAL, because they'll just change the name of it to Fun Sunshine Shed or something. So, but I would not be very, I mean, this is November. I wouldn't rush to this. Really think this through, because we may be allowing something that are going forward with something that will come back to haunt us. And I'm 80 years old. I will be here to see the result. But I hate like hell 20 years from now for Stacy or Jesse or somebody to say, what were we thinking? And how many things have happened to us in this county when we go back and look, what were we thinking?
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Yes, Mr. Paulson.
So your concern with accessory structures on vacant land is that they would be used by people coming up, parking their campers, putting their stuff in, and then leaving. Is that correct?
Part of it.
Okay.
Part of it is, and it also has to do with people having a nice home, and now they got, you expect something when you buy in RR1 or RR2.
Right.
Or in agriculture. These are the things you expect. And I expect the dwelling to be next to me. I don't expect somebody to be using it for their low recreational value, of which I have to pay taxes to support all this.
Right.
Okay.
Are you on the board?
Not anymore. I got smart and got off.
Okay.
I'm not speaking for the town board.
Well, you did though. You said.
No, I said from the town of Bass
You
Lake.
said it wouldn't get past Bass Lake.
I would be very surprised. Is what I
Okay,
said.
you'd be very surprised.
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
I would be shocked.
Shocked. Got it.
I guess, Mr. Neese, I got one last question. for you.
Yeah.
So in the town of Bass Lake, the lots you're talking about that are very affordable, and small, don't you have to own multiple lots to have a sanitation permit or a septic? or
Well, to
anything?
build, you have to have 20,000. You have to have 7 lots.
7 lots.
But I can buy 7 lots in Northwest Beach for $9,000 or 7 or 10. I met a couple not too long ago. They were down at the boat landing and they were looking for some lots in Northwest Beach. And they said, you know where this is at? And I said, yeah, we're going to build a house because it was 7 lots. I said, oh no, we're going to put a shed. We're going to bring our stuff up and we're going to just recreate a little bit with it. And I said, well, that's fine.
Do they use a porta potty then or something, or?
Sure, there's a whole sanitation. In our ordinance there is, and then
Okay.
Bass Lake took the county's ordinance and added to it. And it would be, even if you pass it, it's legal in Bass Lake to do what you talk about doing. So, as it stands today. Thank you.
Jeannie Chubak.
I'm Jenny Chabek. My address is 10363 N McLean Road. I am a member of the Town of Round Lake Board, but I'm here representing myself. I agree that we need to clarify this language, and thank you, Jay, for taking a stab at it, because this is going in the right direction. I also agree with Phil that this is probably going to take a while to get to the final point, but mainly my concern is that shipping containers do not add value to anybody's property. They do not add to the tax base. A structure, a regular structure does, and so we, should consider them before shipping containers. The portable nature is a benefit if there is a temporary term. So if we're going to say you're going to put a shipping container on, then you've got X number of months to get rid of it. I mean, otherwise there's no benefit. Also, I think that the conditional use permit process is very important for all structures on vacant land, because this board, this committee, the town committees very seldom deny them. I mean, the object of the conditional use permit process is to get feedback from the neighbors, take it into consideration, and come up with a solution that works for everybody. And I see that as a benefit. So bypassing that really is not beneficial at all in my mind. And then, as said previously about shipping containers, the appearance needs to be regulated regarding paint, rust, placement, whatever the best practice is. And we haven't even scratched the surface of that with this yet. So those things I think need to be considered before actually drafting up the language. And thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Zillmer?
Linda Zillmer, previously provided my address, and Edgewater property owner. Over the years of attending town board meetings, we've had a lot of comments from primarily non-residents who have recreational properties, and they might have a shed or an older cabin, and they complain about lack of patrol by county sheriff or even the local police, primarily property crimes. When you have a vacant structure that contains items, it's an invitation for people to come in and possibly take things. So we've had people where their items have been stolen from structures on vacant lands, wanting to see more law enforcement. So if this committee considers opening up, allowing accessory structures, whether they're containers or constructed buildings on vacant land, I think it's an invitation for more property crimes and more demand on our law enforcement. And just in a different zone and jurisdiction, I have an accessory structure on a vacant lot, and you cannot get that insured. You have to go to a special insurance company that will insure those structures and the contents. Most of your major insurance carriers will not cover that. So again, going back to the property crime aspect, vacant structures on, accessory structures on vacant land, please take into consider the property crimes. And then also, as people realize that maybe they're not insured, they're going to want to have more law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you say you had a structure on vacant land currently?
In a different zoning jurisdiction, yes. I have an accessory structure on, not vacant land, but it doesn't have a primary dwelling.
In Sawyer County?
No, I said a different zoning jurisdiction.
Okay.
So
And then
I
you-
know personally that in trying to get that dwelling insured through major carriers, they will not insure that building or the contents because it's not on a lot with a primary dwelling.
And then you also said that by putting a shipping container where you can safely and secure your items, you say that would be an invitation to more crime as opposed to leaving the items out in the open?
I guess I would correct that I'm not differentiating between a shipping container and a built structure. I'm just saying that when you have structures on a piece of property where somebody's not living there, that is an invitation to property crimes because nobody's there to watch. And I'm also not in favor of people just leaving things out in the open. But I didn't say that. But I also did not differentiate between a shipping container and a built structure. I'm just
Okay.
saying that these accessory buildings are potentially an invitation. Thank you.
I got, listening to this and I kind of agree with Mr. Betcher, putting it on a vacant lot. But where we can possibly put in, that the upkeep, paint, the visibility of that structure. So, I don't see where they're gonna be any more where people want to break into them, and other than vacant, a lot of these cabins that sit on these lands that get broke into. So I kind of agree with Mr. Betcher where we do that and put it on a vacant lot.
From the zoning administrator standpoint, I just know that any kind of landscaping requirements is going to be very time consuming, very difficult to enforce, very difficult to draft a language for that. I know we talked, a couple of months ago when we first kind of even started this conversation, Rebecca had brought up the facts that there was some other counties that have these, these landscaping requirements. And I think that's, the main concern with shipping containers is an aesthetic standpoint. While still trying to juggle, the issues of, okay, do you keep it outside or do you keep it in a locked, secure area? And those are the things where we're spinning wheels on to say, okay, well, what makes, sense longevity wise for Sawyer County? And this is where I kind of, at least was able to get something into writing, but where I kind of keep getting dead-ended in my mind where, okay, it's nice to have a nice secured area, but we don't want it to look like crap, but we don't want to have a bunch of stuff that it needs to be painted annually and it's got to be a certain color and then the wheel just goes back around.
Go ahead, Mr. Schuman.
Oh, sorry. I beat you, Jeff.
Well, Stacy, who actually had her hand up
That's
first.
Oh,
I'm just an
you
alternate.
sure?
No, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mr. Schuman.
Okay. So the point that it doesn't increase the tax base. Jay, do you mean if we put an accessory structure on vacant land, that the county assessor, or the town assessor is not going to increase the value of that land?
I actually have that written down here and that I want to talk to the
Right.
town
Yeah.
assessors.
I want
'cause
to learn
think-
more about that.
If we do this exemption for an accessory structure on vacant property, but we're requiring them regardless of size, that they have to get a permit.
Right.
Those permits are then given to the town assessors. Now, they're gonna slap a value on that, I don't know, that a shipping container is assessed at $3,000 and that pre-built shed is assessed at $5,000. Would that end up going on to the tax roll as an improvement value? Yes, but an improvement value of $3,000 to $5,000 is only going to raise the taxes $20 a year.
Mhm.
So I mean,
That
yes,
still
there's-
affects the,
it does, but
Minimally,
minutely,
you're saying.
yeah, very minute.
Paulson?
So Jay, if I understand the shipping container ordinance draft, somebody could come and I've got 2 lots on either side of me. I'm not on the water, just in the woods having, just a very comfortable home. Somebody, what are the side setbacks, 5 or 10?
For a detached accessory structure right now is 5 feet from the side lot
Okay,
line.
so somebody could come and put a chartreuse shipping container 5 feet from my lot line.
If they had a house right now.
Right,
yes.
that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
So, and, I've got neighbors who have a lot of toys. And, they're looking for places to put, to secure those toys. So they could, put that shipping container and the other guy on the other side could do the very same thing.
Yep, but it would be hot pink.
Whatever color that is
And yes,
objectionable.
we have no ordinance that regulates color or
Right.
landscaping
No,
or
I
aesthetics
understand. So-
right now, so.
No, I understand.
But yes, the answer would be yes.
So maybe what Mr. Paulson's getting at might also address the chairman's question about aesthetics, where instead of, because you said it's gonna be very difficult to limit, colors and how to paint them in landscaping and stuff like that. So maybe the solution for these structures on vacant land would be they have minimum setbacks that are, from the road and adjoining property lines.
To
Force
increase
them to
setback
be
distance?
increased setback distances.
Right.
Because I think that if I'm driving through the woods on a back road and I can't even see the structure, then then aesthetics is not an issue. So if it's far enough from the road or from my adjacent property lines, then that might be the answer, and then we wouldn't have to focus so much on. the
Would that
landscaping
be
and-
for just for accessory structures on vacant
On
land
vacant
or
land.
for any shipping?
No,
container?
I was only talking
Okay.
about on vacant land here. Unfortunately, Mr. Paulson is out of luck as those shipping containers are going right up.
That's it, yeah. Would be damaging to the rights of others and property values.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think another way to say that might be to increase the minimum lot size. I mean, if you go with something that's a minimum of 2 acres before you can put some kind of
Mhm.
an extra accessory structure on it, you have more chance of it being neutral to your neighbors than 2,000 feet.
That could be covered in minimum setbacks. If you put the minimum setbacks at, let's say, 200 feet or 300
Right,
feet,
it would regulate what
then
your
you
lot size.
Right.
you physically couldn't put one on a 1 acre or 2 acre lot
Right.
because
Right.
you wouldn't have the setback. So
Same thing.
same thing.
Mr. Paulson?
What's the downside of allowing accessory structures on vacant land?
So as of, right now, again, we get tons of inquiries about this, and I've invited individuals to come here and to, petition to this zoning committee to, potentially allow these smaller accessory structures on vacant lands. What I'm hearing right now from the general patrons of Sawyer County is, whether it's for camping or whether it's just for people that are coming up here, they may not have a camper, but they want to do some lot clearing, and just view and visit their property that they own. They have no place to store any of those materials, like you talk about, whether it's a four-wheeler or a chainsaw or tools, and that they're either hauling them back and forth, or they're leaving them unsecured under a tarp, or they're trying to get around zoning ordinance requirements and still putting a shed up even though they're not allowed to. So I mean, those are some of those consequences that are happening right now. Unintended, if we don't allow that to occur, it's going to continue. And we're trying to juggle the balance of what the patrons of Sawyer County are wanting as a concern to the general public and the citizens, as well as looking at the long term is how do we want the county to look in 20, 30, 40 years? Do we want a bunch of sheds on vacant properties and or shipping containers? I know other counties right now, they do allow accessory structures on vacant property. I know Washburn County allows accessory structures on vacant property. You can put up a 40 by 60 pole shed in Washburn County without a house there.
What's the downside? I haven't heard a downside yet.
Really, it's
The
just
unintended consequences, negative consequences.
the only thing, and why I wanted to keep them small, at least for Sawyer County, is that they weren't turning into some other, unintended use. I've talked to those individuals in the zoning department in Washburn County, and they're getting a lot of reports that, that people are staying in those
Right,
larger
absolutely.
garages, those larger sheds.
Right.
Again, from an unintended consequence, if someone wants to convert that into a living quarters, but they don't go through the proper procedures and something drastic happens, a fire, carbon monoxide, or whatever. I mean, in the end of the day, that's on them. They
Right.
took that choice. They took that chance. It was, I guess, from my understanding, being here 13 years, be it 20, 30 years ago, the zoning committee at that time really was adamant against allowing larger accessory structures on vacant property, that that there would be less upkeep to someone that just had a garage for storage versus someone that had a house and garage. The mentality there is that there would be more upkeep to the property once you had that larger investment in a house as opposed to just a garage or a shed. But that's the only kind of unintended consequence that I can see is, if we raise the size of them, that people are going to, whether they're, converting them to living quarters. And that's where, some tax implications come in, because if it's a residential structure, it's obviously assessed a lot more than just a garage. And once the garage is up, it's hard to observe what's occurring inside of that space.
Absolutely. On vacant land, do they need a fire number?
If they're using it for camping, yes, and that's probably something that we would want to put in here then too.
Right.
For these accessory structures on vacant property, if we do allow this exemption, I would probably add that a fire number be required as well, because if you're going, whether you're using it for camping, you would already need one. But if you're just going up to your property in the middle of the woods and wanted to have a small shed for a chainsaw because you do some hunting out there, you put your tree stands in there, eventually you're going to want a site address or a fire number, because if there's an emergency, how are they going to be able to find you?
That's it. That's what I was going
I do
with
like
this.
that, and I'm going to actually write that one down, that, as part of this exemption, that you would still need a fire number or site address.
I'm gonna go with Ms. Pettit. She has her hand up. Go ahead, Ms. Pettit.
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. It was just back to the point of breaking into them. Being a police officer's daughter, if there's something they want, it's not gonna matter what it is. They're going to get into it. So if it's and now coming from the logging background, we've had trailers where they've just torched and, torched it open and took our equipment. We do have a shipping container. It was used as storage for some of the equipment and for some of our utility vehicles. I would rather see that than it all skewed throughout the property. But again, if you have something and they want it, they're going to take it regardless if it's locked up, not locked up, if it's in a shed, if it's in a shipping container, if it's in a garage, if it's in cabin. We have it every winter where they go where there's no one there and they break into the cabins and they break into whatever they want. And sometimes they live in them. It doesn't matter. So it's a moot point about if we allow them, if the police presence is going to increase. It happens every winter. And if your things are stolen, you're going to report it or you might not. But you have neighbors and things that will see people going. That's how we usually find out cabins are getting broken into or things are getting broken into. It's usually in a wave during the wintertime.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Estel.
Are we being proactive to the tiny homes and to the shipping containers being converted into homes?
So right now, and that's a whole nother can of worms
Right,
to go to, but right now we have dimensional requirements and overall habitable square footage requirements for any type of living area or habitable area. So that tiny house movement really never caught on, but we get questions on it all the time as well. But right now, other than an agricultural zone district, you would need a minimum width and length of 20 feet for a habitable structure. 20 feet of width, 20 feet of length. So you got to have a 20 by 20 box that fits within your designated habitable living area. You would also need a minimum of 500 square feet of habitable living area. So we see scenarios where people do build like a 20 by 20 cabin and they put a small little cute loft up in the top and it's 500 square feet of total habitable living area. But then we get the questions, there's a lot of these pre-built ones that are coming out here, whether they're designated as bunk houses or the tiny houses. There was some forward thinking with that, and that those structures generally are not 20 feet of width. They may be 16 by 40 or 16 by 30, but they don't have the 20 by 20 dimensional requirements. That ultimately is a whole other can of worms, which will probably end up opening within the next couple of years as well.
I didn't know if it fell off your
But-
list. That's my only reason for asking.
Yeah, as of right now, no. One at a time, I suppose.
Go ahead.
Just personally, I find shipping container just objectionable. But if we could, and I know you've talked about the difficulty, if we could craft some language to make them less objectionable. Somewhat, the colors are what, green, blue, and
They come in all different.
all
colors,
different
I'm sure.
colors, and so,
Yeah.
Rust.
right, so I mean, personally,
Mainly rust.
right. Yeah, well, rust isn't bad as blue. though.
Right, and, you know, I've seen, I know there, and maybe Rebecca can chime in this, I mean, she said there are, you know, avenues in which you can take, you know, landscaping. I know there are some other state statutes, it's at least regulating, you know, shoreline structures where there was statutes that you couldn't regulate appearance. Now, I think those are for like boat houses or maybe other exempt structures where you couldn't regulate appearance. I just find regulating of appearances messy, objectionable. You know, you talk about, you know, oh, they have to be painted, you know, earth tone colors. Well, what's an earth tone color? You know, yellow, rust is earth tone. So, I mean, okay, it can't be rust color. Okay, then I'm going to spray paint it neon green, like you said. So it's messy to regulate an appearance, but it can be done. It's just, again, it's got to be crafted very, very well. And again, if it ever went to court on something, I mean, you got to have, you know, really button down on what you're regulating as far as appearance.
Yeah, but that's why we've got a corporate counsel to
Right.
help us with all of that.
Go ahead, Mr. Schuman.
What about, have you ever thought, Jay, of making them temporary?
Yeah, and we
Temporary?
do allow them right now on a temporary construction build process. And there's some larger contractors that are, you know, building houses, and they've asked, hey, you know, we got a dumpster out on the site, you know, can we bring in a shipping container too? So, you know, we can just keep our tools and equipment. And I've allowed that as a temporary nature, but that's during an active, open construction process through the land use permit. That once that land use permit is valid for that 12 months, that shipping container is gone.
Jay, where are the towns at? You must meet or.
No,
know
haven't
about them.
haven't talked to the
Because
towns
we
yet.
really, we could put a lot of work into this and then the towns just totally rip it up and.
Right, and then if we don't have any work
So-
into it though, you're gonna have,
Right,
you know,
but I think-
14 different opinions from. all
We're
the
probably
towns.
getting close to send it to the towns and see where
Well,
they're.
here's my question. This shipping container seems to be a big discussion right now. What if we have a special public hearing on shipping containers only and get to the inputs
And accessory structures. No?
and accessory structure
On vacant land, yeah.
and vacant land?
I like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately, we would have one,
Right.
but you generally would have that public hearing, you know,
Yeah.
towards a finalized version. So you're wanting to have more of a, you know, informational
Well,
public hearing. where people
yeah,
can come in and
I guess I'm
state
trying to
their-
do it for our benefit and yours.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
How did we send out the camping ordinance or the campground ordinance? Can't we just do it that same process?
right. And I ultimately, that I did as a, you know, as a questionnaire to the towns, and they provided information back, which we encompassed into the ordinance. You know, so we can do that again, but before sending anything to the towns, I wanted to have at least something on
Right.
paper as to what route we want to go, because,
Sure.
you know, just
Right.
hearing what we've heard today, I mean, there's a difference of opinions here between the zoning committee members. So,
Absolutely.
if that's the case, I mean, we got to come to some type of compromise one way or another, or we'll never get anything passed into ordinance, so.
But I mean, I like Jesse's suggestion about accessory structures, you know, setback is a greater distance. You know, and I think everybody should have a fire number if they've got one.
Yep.
Okay.
So I think, if I can speak, I think that, I mean, you have some changes, and if you put this in draft form, I still think that we should get the opinions of the towns first before the special public hearing, just to get, so we can make some more changes. So at the public hearing, we're not all over the place. We're
Right.
kind of focused, because I think there's some slight differences of opinion here and there, but I think generally we are narrowing it down to getting something in writing. So I think, maybe make a few additional tweaks here from what we've discussed, and then get something sent out to the town for their input and potential changes.
Would you want those small changes to come back here and just review them before sending out something to the towns here?
I mean, that's up to the chairman.
Right.
I think that we're like, the gentleman to my right is in favor of aesthetically pleasing colors and landscaping, whereas I'm totally against that. And that goes back to my flashbacks from being in a homeowners association where I had to have a specific shade of green of my mailbox. And my mailbox got ran over, so I replaced it, and then I used the shade that was slightly off, and then I was fined for that. So I don't want to get into colors and stuff like that. And I think that can be alleviated by having, hey, it needs to be far enough from the road where it's not going to be an eyesore if you're driving by. So I think the setbacks is a better solution than, ordinate or putting in.
And we could do
ordinances
something
specific
too
color or
with the
something.
setbacks just for shipping containers. Because again, there's the two separate issues, and
Right.
whether or not we want to allow a shipping container as your exempt accessory structure on vacant land, again, that's a different, topic in which we have to, decide on, do we allow the 144, is that size too small, too large? And whether or not, okay, if we go up to 160 and someone wants to put an 8x20 as their, shipping container accessory structure. But then we have other language that says a shipping container needs to be, 100 feet from all property lines. I'd rather have something like that as opposed to, a color designation.
Go ahead, Mr. Paulson.
So if we're talking about an accessory structure on primary property, my neighbor again. I mean,
Right, yeah, the neighbor
Okay.
scenario. I mean, we could do something where that, if your accessory structure is going to be in the form of a intermodal container and or a shipping container, that
Right.
it has to have a larger setback associated. to it. We could piece that out.
okay,
Because right now, you can have a shed, they become non-conforming, and I'd have to keep a running list of it, which again is a nightmare to do, but.
Okay, talking about sending it to the towns, with Jay's input on what his changes are. I think the committee should look at it first
I do
and then
too.
send it to the town.
I do too.
So,
Okay, I got Rebecca's hand is up now. as well.
go ahead, Rebecca.
Hello, just from a process standpoint, do you want me to review the draft now or wait until you've got more town input? Obviously not a change of any material provisions, but just switching a few things around so it is a more legally sound draft.
I would wait for the town.
I would wait too.
Yes, he tweet. Good.
Agree.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.
So I will add some of the things that I heard that we should definitely have. I can, start working on an increased setback distance. As of right now, I'll just have it as that exemption. That if we're, to allow an exemption of accessory structures, that they have to meet an increased setback distance, and I'll do some research and, try to do some math as to, if I do a 200-foot setback from all property lines, what would that acreage end up having to be? And I'll also, get some language in there that a fire number or site address is required. I do want to talk to the town assessors to see, if they would, when these permits would be required for accessory structures on vacant land, what the town assessors do for, their assessed values, that if we're getting some additional, revenue through taxes through that aspect, and kind of just polish this up and bring it back to you, and we'll get another kick at it.
So, go ahead, Mr.
Well, the biggest question I have is what do we want this county to look like?
Right.
And I don't know of any body that has ever done any work on what we want this county to look like. I mean,
Right, and there was a couple months ago, and that individual is not here today, but there was an individual that made some pretty strong comments towards me. He even came into the office and made some pretty strong comments about, well, why are you, requiring that shipping containers need to have permits? They've never required permits before. They don't require permits anywhere in the state of Wisconsin. I have email correspondence from the other neighboring counties that Bayfield County just went through, language. They treat them as accessory structures. They require permits. Burnett County, they're viewed as accessory structures. They require permits. They allow accessory structures on vacant property. This is from Rusk County. They treat them as accessory structures. They require land use permits. They don't allow them on vacant property. So I just want to let you know that, this isn't unique to
right.
anywhere else that we're seeing in the area. So,
Have you talked to Vilas County? I mean, they're most like us. I mean, they-
Vilas and Oneida, no, I have not, and I can reach out to them as well.
Yeah, I
to see
think
what
that
they-
would be good
yeah.
input, you know, because they're,
Just
When he's
one
done.
clarification, Jay, on that, the portion about shoreland. Can you clarify that a little bit more so that the way I read it, I think the intent is that shoreland property is not part of this exemption.
No, that's, I guess, not how that was to read. So that's in a separate section on where and when land use permits are required. So that reads, and I'll just move it down here so you can see it too, that a permit and a permit fee shall be waived for the placement, construction, alteration, or addition of a structure if it contains 100 square feet or less. So basically, if you want to do a small little entryway on your cabin, you can do it without a permit. You want to do a 6x6 entryway, you don't need a permit. If you want to put an 8x10 shed out there, you don't need a permit. If it's an alteration results in an increase of 100 square feet or less, an application must be filed with the zoning department for shoreline properties, for any structure, and for accessory structure exemption specified in 4.26. So regardless of size on shoreline properties, you need a permit because the county is to be tracking the impervious surface totals. So even if you were to put an 8x8 shed on your property on shoreline, we need a permit because we have to track impervious surfaces. And then we'd also set it up that for these exempt structures, regardless of size, you would need a permit. So right now, it wouldn't read that if it's on shoreline, that you couldn't have a 130 square foot shed. If that doesn't read correctly, I can change that too, but I think that's what it is.
And would it require a conditional use permit or just a regular?
Be a regular permit. And that's, I mean, that's some of the things we're talking about. I mean, if we want to have, you know, for any type of accessory structure on vacant property, that they have to come in and get a conditional use permit, or if they were going to do a shipping container, they have to come in for a conditional use permit. But we can look at that language as well. That was never brought up with the committee here at all, is requiring, you know, conditional use permits on it. I think, you know, to have it as, you know, that you can have one shipping container on a property, again, not looking at vacant property, you have a house on there, that you'd be allowed one shipping container. If you wanted more than one shipping container, right now it reads that you'd have to come in and get a conditional use permit. But I don't see, well, I don't know how the county or the committee could deny that unless there was some type of
Right.
justification that it was a decrease in property value.
right, you know, so that's a problem for me is because once conditional use permits, I mean. we
Right, so I mean, we could
rarely
even
turn
just
them
have
down.
it that, okay, then you're only allowed one,
Right, if you're
or
allowed
you're only
any,
allowed two.
right,
You know, to just not give them the option of going for a conditional use permit, because again, with the language of Act 67,
right.
it can be very difficult to deny.
Okay. Ms. Pettit, go ahead.
How are we gonna handle the pre-existing? Because there are many out there. There are many out there that have numerous on their land, or if they have sheds. How are we gonna handle that?
I would invite you to start writing down some addresses and giving those to me. I don't have time to get everywhere in the county. I get reports of shipping containers and accessory structures on vacant property, and I try to get, you know, one or two of those addressed per week and get them out. And as soon as I get two out, I get two more back in, and we are addressing them. It's just, it's a timing thing and trying to catch up with the ones that we do have out there. So they wouldn't be, you know, grandfathered or anything. They're still, at this point right now, they're illegal and or without permits, which are subject to citations, fines, or after the fact permit fees.
Ms. Bennett, are you okay with sending this back or sending it, come back to the committee before we send it to the towns? The rest of the committee was, I forgot
Yeah,
that.
no, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
All right, does Rebecca have her hand up? Or
She does again. Yeah, Rebecca, did you have your hand up again?
No, I just forgot to lower it before.
Okay,
Okay, any more discussion on this? Okay, if not, any other business that may come before the committee? Not, we're adjourned.
so it looks like we're gonna run again, huh?